Hello everybody, this is John D here again, and welcome back to another episode of Godzilla and His Amazing Friends with audio commentary. Much like the previous episodes, I will be providing you with some information and clarify on some things that might have been skipped in the last episode. Well, in the original episode, so let's dive into it. Here is episode 7, entitled A Shocking Comeback, and it stars the monster Niranga, which should be coming up in just a short bit. And there he is. Now, so I can clarify with this beginning here that you're looking at right now, a few people sort of misinterpreted this as Niranga and Ella King battling. Well, essentially what Niranga is doing is he's feeding off of Ella King's electricity, because in both of Naranga's appearances, he's always had a hunger for electricity and energy. And so I wanted to try and make that, give him a little bit of backstory behind him on that. And so that's what that opening was. Niranga would constantly harass and try to feed on Ella King's energy, because in turn it would empower him. And why he does this, I'll get into later on in this episode. But let's get on to some more details. Now, with this episode, this is the last episode of my series in which I would depend solely on Windows Movie Maker and Photoshop to get my projects done. As around this time I was going into college and I was learning about motion graphics, which is more along the lines of what the series is slowly becoming into now. It's expanding, like I said earlier on. And this is sort of like the last hurrah of my training I have been going through with putting the episode together. So, yeah, this episode is somewhat special in a way. It was definitely well received, much more well received than episode 6, that's for sure. Now with this scene right here, it's of course stock footage of episode 3, and the reason why I included this as well as the opening scenes earlier was, again, to clarify that I didn't really make Anguirus and Rodan look confused when Godzilla hurled the boulder back there, and so with this scene, what's coming up in just a short bit, I sort of clarified that, Godzilla's upset that he had to go through all that trouble to get a boulder, and those question marks I added to explain what's his problem, like that sort of expression. So hopefully that cleared up all the problems that episode 3 made. So they definitely did a good job there, which I'm proud of. Now this scene right here, the Gauss tail, I did not actually break my Gauss's tail. That was actually photoshopped. And with this scene right here, I sort of clarified that Godzilla, and as well as the other monsters in the series, are omnivorous. I know that's sort of a anatomy violation, but with my series, I wanted to make it somewhat realistically of how the monsters survive with, like, food consumption and whatnot, because if they were all carnivorous, they'd all be killing each other in order to survive, and so I made all the monsters in my series omnivorous, so that way they can coexist peacefully and whatnot. And so, getting back onto that conflict between Ella King and Niranga, this is also the first time in which I utilized flashbacks in my series to explain parts of the story to help people understand what is going on in the episode. Right now what you're looking at is, of course, how Godzilla killed Niranga, and, how Godzilla killed Ella King in episode 3, sorry about that. And at the time, Niranga was there watching the match. And the reason why he's angry, as you can tell by that expression, is Ella King is his food source, and he didn't like or love Ella King. He just wanted Ella King alive so he could constantly feed, and now that Ella King is dead, Niranga has nothing left to feed on. So that's why he wants revenge against Godzilla. Also, that one expression back there with Godzilla exhaling the little bubble thing, I wanted to try and include more anime-esque expressions to make my series a little bit more lighthearted, so I kind of gave Godzilla and Niranga, as you could tell, there are more anime-based expressions to help tell their expressions. Sorry if I'm sounding redundant back there, but yeah. That exhale was basically Godzilla frustrated and aggravated that Naranga is giving him problems, especially after King had just given him a big problem too. And X-Pac factor. By the way, that's what that is. It's a sit-out facebuster that the wrestler X-Pac uses, Sean Waltman. And I wanted to try and give Godzilla a little bit more wrestling abilities to sort of expand on his physical attributes in battle. So I gave him that, as well as a bit more as the series will progress, but we'll get to that later on. Now, here we see Naranga disappearing. One of the few minor problems of this episode was trying to distinguish what this particular ability of Naranga was, because in both of his episode appearances, he's described as being invisible, as you can see by him firing the lightning at Godzilla. He is both invisible in Ultraman and Ultra Galaxy, but in Ultra Galaxy, you can see that he does go transparent when Gudon and Gamora strike him, so I tried to make him more transparent in this series, rather than just solely focus on him being invisible, because if he were invisible, he would still feel the effects like he did in Ultra Galaxy, which would be somewhat of an inconsistency. So this ability is more transparency than invisibility, so that's what I wanted to try and do with him. Just try and clarify on his superpowers. And thus we have the appearance of Gamora. Now, with episode 4, I didn't feel I was really treating Gamora with respect at the time, especially with what I had coming for him as the series would progress. So the reason I added Gamora in here was pretty much to add him for fan service, and because, well, what would happen to him. So which I'll discuss later on. He's here to help Godzilla and to please the fans, and that's pretty much it right there. Now with this scene right here, yes, this is again another one of those anime-based techniques I borrowed in order to help tell the story. Godzilla and Gamora are now focusing on hearing for Naranga's presence and movements, which I'll admit I did sort of, quote, copied off of his Ultra Galaxy death, but I enhanced it with my own ending, which you will see later on. But yeah, the moving backgrounds you see back there is actually Naranga moving around, so just to help clarify that, Naranga's on the move and is getting ready for his next attack, and by listening, Godzilla and Gamora are able to pinpoint where his next attack would be. So, and there you go. They listened in, and now Naranga's weakened. And also, another thing I just noticed is that this is the only episode in which I included the Ultra Galaxy death that Gamora uses to kill a monster. Which actually wasn't that hard to pull off, it's just surrounding the monster at first, so yeah. And of course, Naranga's death. Now what you saw here is that Gamora pumped Naranga with energy, and Godzilla struck the wound in which Gamora punctured, which filled Naranga with more energy, pretty much blowing him up, which is what you're seeing right now. And as another thing for this episode, since we're wrapping up on it, this small handshake between Gamora and Godzilla is once again to help define well, it's coming up in just a short bit, and I'm sort of dragging this out. Sorry about that. Okay, now here we go. With Godzilla's basically telling Gamora, like, hey, come on, let's go hang out. And Gamora's like, nah, I don't want to, because of what he goes through in episode 12. But that's a later thing to clarify in episode 12 when I get there for its audio commentary. And so Godzilla is disappointed that Gamora won't hang out with him, much like he didn't in episode 4. So he just goes out to hang on his own, since he doesn't really want to hang with Anguirus and Rodan after episode 3. And that's it for the audio commentary of episode 7. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next month for episode 8. Later.